Hi, Sam.
Mario, hello.
Yes, can you hear me, buds?
Loud and clear, sir. Are you from the podium?
That's right, yes. I will go to the other side.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yes, Sam, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Mario.
Hi, Sam, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Thank you very much. We're good to go, sir.
Sure.
Cheers.
Yeah, this is fine.
Recording in progress.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. You may be seated. Honorable members, please remember to stay in your allocated seat and keep your mask on. This is in the interest of safety of all of us. The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Resumption of debate on vote number 1, the Presidency. Reply by the President. Appropriation Bill.
Mr. President, welcome to the House today. We now invite you to address the House.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Deputy President David Dabede Mabuza, Ministers and Deputy Ministers and Honorable Members. Yesterday I omitted to wish Minister Didiza happy birthday during a meeting of one of our cabinet committees. I promised that I would give her chocolate, very delicious chocolate from Ghana. So I am going to deliver chocolate to you from Ghana, Minister. And happy birthday. I'd like to thank all those who participated in the debate and also thank you, Deputy Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to reply to yesterday's debate. True to form, the engagement here was lively, it was robust as usual, and it was a demonstration that our democracy is indeed vibrant and that our perspectives are as diverse as the South African people that we represent in this parliament. It is a matter of great significance and value that this parliament provides space for conflicting views that should be aired, debated, and also for competing interests to be mediated. We must never forget how far we have come from the conflict of our horrible past, from the silencing of dissent, and from the banning of legitimate voices of the people of this country. I therefore welcome and appreciate yesterday's debate, not only for what it said, but also for what that kind of debate represents in the life of our country. But while there are areas of public life where we have made a decisive break with our apartheid past, we all know very well that this country's divided and violent history continues to live on in the lives of millions of South Africans. We see it every day, we feel it every day, we touch it every day, and we observe it on an ongoing basis. Several speakers spoke of the difficult, sometimes desperate conditions under which many of our people live. Over the last 27 years, we have made much to give effect to Madiba's call that the responsibility of government is to redress the centuries of unspeakable privations by striving to eliminate poverty, illiteracy, homelessness, and disease. But as we all know, there is so much more that we need to do, both as government, as our legislatures, both at national and provincial level, as local government. We have a lot of work to do. And it is true that a lot has been done and achieved on the housing side. 5 million subsidized houses and housing opportunities have been provided for the poor in our country since 1994. But still, millions of people live in informal settlements. That should concern us. It is true that the proportion of homes with access to water has really increased from around 60% in 1994 to 88%, almost 90% today. But still, many of our people do not have access to reliable supply of water or sanitation. That should concern us. It is true that the murder rate per capita in our country has nearly halved in the last 25 years, but still, communities in our country are ravaged by crime, gangsterism, and violence. It is true that 6 million more people are employed now than 25 years ago. But it is also true as a number of speakers said yesterday, that in the first quarter of this year, the unemployment rate in our country reached its highest level ever. This reality demonstrates the enormous burden of our fractured past, of the depth of deprivation, disempowerment, and deliberate neglect. It demonstrates how difficult it has been to break the cycle of poverty. But we are not only grappling with the undeniable effects of our past, we are also having to confront many of the challenges of the present. The most immediate of these is the impact of COVID-19, which has caused massive damage to economies around the world, and which has set our own economic progress back by a number of years. It has made South Africans poorer, it has made hunger more widespread, and it has directly affected the health and well-being of hundreds of thousands of people in our country. It has made the task of growing an inclusive economy and transforming our society that much more difficult. But it is equally important that we recognize that our own weaknesses and shortcomings have hampered the task of building a new society and achieving a better life for all. We must, as we have done, acknowledge that there have been failures of governance in several areas of government, in municipalities, in departments, both at provincial and national level, and in our state-owned enterprises, and a number of other government entities. As the NPC diagnostic report identified, development has been constrained by poor planning and inadequate coordination. And perhaps the most debilitating of factors has been corruption, nepotism, and patronage in many parts of the state, as well as in the private sector. While we are now aware of the billions that were stolen from state-owned enterprises, there is no form of corruption, no matter how seemingly insignificant, that does not damage society. Corruption is not a victimless crime. It deprives the poor in our country of resources that are rightfully theirs. It starves the economy of investment, in that those who would want to invest in our economy are kept away by the stench of corruption. It leads to a degradation of public infrastructure and services, and tragically, it ultimately does cost lives. This is the context in which the budget vote of the presidency must be understood. It is these challenges that the presidency is determined to address, both those rooted deep in our past and those that manifest themselves today. In the State of the Nation address in February, I compared our nation to the fynbos of our beautiful province, the Cape, which emerges from the most intense flames ever stronger than before. Our country has suffered great devastation. And as COVID-19 continues to spread within our communities, and as it continues to take people's lives, we cannot yet say that we have extinguished the flames of this pandemic. But we will. But what we can say is that we are now seeing some of the green shoots of recovery. We are now seeing signs that the focus of this administration has placed on economic reform, which began before the pandemic, that it is steadily but surely paying off. As a result of the devastation caused by COVID-19, we are starting from a low base. However, most economies and agencies have adjusted their growth projections for South Africa, including the International Monetary Fund, which has revised upwards its projections for our growth from 2.8% to 3.1% for this year. According to the South African Reserve Bank's first financial stability review for this year that was released last week, our economy continues to rebound from last year's recession, albeit at different rates across sectors. By a number of indicators, economic activity is returning to pre-pandemic levels at an encouraging pace. One such indicator is the performance of our currency. The rand is at its best levels since 2019 and is currently outperforming the currencies of our major trading partners. This is being aided by high commodity prices that we are getting for our commodities. Our favorable position as a commodity producer should attract capital inflows and boost the fortunes of domestic producers as well as traders and retailers. Salaries are recovering to pre-pandemic levels. An index of take-home salaries in the private sector shows that typical take-home pay increased by 2.2% after inflation in its most recent reading in April. Aided by low interest rates and some income growth, household demand is picking up, with the growth rate at household credit picking up to pre-pandemic levels. Now, these are interesting indicators. A leading company that provides payment processing services for small businesses reports that the turnover captured by point-of-sale devices is increasing to levels last seen in March 2020. For the first time in 18 years, in 2020 we recorded an annual current account surplus. This was aided by a 270 billion trade surplus last year, the fifth in a row and the highest on record. The trade surplus comes from commodity exports, particularly our platinum, but also from significant agricultural exports. Last year, South Africa recorded its second highest agricultural export earnings on record and is headed for a second bumper year. The manufacturing sector is recovering and expanding at a reasonably faster pace. Despite the impact of the pandemic on the sector globally, automotive component exports increased last year to a record 54 billion rand. Now, these are indicators that some of us look at, that the Minister of Finance looks at continuously, the Governor of the Reserve Bank looks at, to tell us the changes and the moves that are taking place in our economy. Exports of commercial vehicles, especially the so-called heavy commercials like tractors and trucks, are also performing strongly. Mining and manufacturing were also sectors where jobs were created, according to the latest quarterly labor force survey. One of the sectors that has also proven most resilient and fast-growing is the financial services sector. According to the Reserve Bank's Financial Stability Review, examples of improved economic activity in this sector are recovering asset prices that had gone down, they are recovering, the stabilizing of bank loan default rates, and that financial institutions remain well capitalized. Now, these are indicators that we should look at as parliamentarians to see the extent to which a recovery is beginning to happen. That after the fire, the faint boss begins to rise again. This sector also improved on year-on-year basis with regards to job creation, managing to recover 215,000 jobs in the last quarter. Even preceding the pandemic, we have been positioning ourselves as a growing hub for the digital economy, including technology startups. The first African tech ecosystems of the Future Index that was published this year ranked our country first on the continent for economic potential, startup status, and business friendliness. Now, that is something that if we don't celebrate, we should be aware of. We have the second highest number of tech startups in Africa and also receive the highest number of foreign direct investment projects in software and IT service. South Africa is still ranked highly as an export destination for global business services. These are all the priority sectors we have defined in the economic reconstruction and recovery plan. And it is for that reason that as we observe, we're seeing movement, positive movement going forward. And of course, we would that everyone who has perceptive eyes should be able to look at these indicators and see precisely what is happening in our country, so that our negativity is in some ways softened, lessened by seeing the positives. Because these are not myths, these are positives. These are things that are happening in our economy. We need to acknowledge that a number of important sectors, such as tourism, are still not fully operational, and that a sector like tourism will take time to recover. At the same time, they are also a cause for optimism. What we have to ensure now is that these green shoots that are visible lead to a sustained acceleration in growth. We are keenly aware, as several members said yesterday, that the pace of structural reform needs to speed up. And it is this that the presidency is focused on. The presidency continues to drive the structural reforms that are necessary to overcome bottlenecks that are deterring investment and slowing our progress. In the State of the Nation address, we undertook to address, for instance, the issue of spectrum allocation. The legal case that is underway threatens to delay the progress that we have all anticipated. All social partners in that sector must now work together to ensure speedy and successful implementation of the identified economic stimulus measures. Government has noted and welcomes the extension of the temporary spectrum assignment by ICASA for a further period. However, we would like to see the spectrum allocation finalized without delay. And I appeal to all stakeholders to speedily resolve the litigation that is underway as soon as possible to enable the licensing process to be concluded for the benefit of all South Africans. In SONA, we said that the long-awaited digital migration would proceed and the switch off of analog transmission towers has begun in a number of provinces after a 6-year delay. Significant work is now underway to improve efficiency also at our ports. Transnet has put in place mechanisms to enable greater private sector participation in port management and to attract investment. Transnet freight rail is also working to allow private operators to access the rail network. We said the revised critical skills list would be published, and we have done so, with work underway to ensure that the final list is comprehensive. We said we would work to resolve challenges in the water sector, and following a 12-year delay, we are in the process of establishing the Water Infrastructure Agency. We are also steadily reducing the turnaround time for water use licenses applications, with the average now at 90 days from over 300 days average in the past. We have resuscitated the Renewable Energy Procurement Program, which had previously been stalled. Bid Window 5 to procure 2,600 megawatts of wind and solar power has been opened, with a further bid window of the same size to be opened later in this year. In line with our commitment to electricity regulation reform, municipalities are now allowed to purchase their own power, and discussions are underway to raise the licensing threshold for embedded generation projects. The legal separation of ESCOM into separate entities for generation, for transmission and distribution is on track to meet its deadline of December 2021. Now, through the Bridges program, we are making a difference in the lives of rural communities who need bridges to enable them to travel to work, access services, and for young children to go to school. Our quest to build a capable state is steadily gaining momentum as previously weakened state institutions are now performing more efficiently. The South African Revenue Service, SARS, has undergone a successful turnaround. Tax collection is exceeding budget estimates for the first time in 5 years. The fight against corruption is also gathering momentum because of improved state capacity and more effective collaboration. Yesterday, the Special Investigation Unit presented a report to SCOPA on its work around COVID-19 procurement. Many of these investigations have been concluded, and the dockets have either been handed over to the NPA or are in the process of being handed over. There have been referrals for disciplinary processes for officials who were involved in corruption. Through the special tribunal which we established, millions in stolen funds have been recouped and continue to be recouped. Through the work of other entities like the Asset Forfeiture Unit, the NPA Investigative Directorate, the Hawks cleanup audit task team, there have been arrests, asset forfeitures, and the freezing of bank accounts of those who were involved in malfeasance. This progress is the direct result of the decision of this administration to drive a collaborative and interagency approach that allows all law enforcement agencies to work together and to share information on an ongoing basis. The issue of national health insurance is also in process. At the backbone of the NHI, the health patient registration system has been implemented, and over 50 million South Africans have been registered. Key aspects of the Presidential Health Compact are being implemented, including the placement of interns and community service candidates. In the moratorium, or rather the moratorium for health posts has been lifted, and more than 28,000 statutory and critical posts were filled across all our provinces. Sustaining current levels of growth, as well as meeting our aspirational targets, largely depends on the pace of the vaccine rollout. As the Deputy President said yesterday, we are on track. We have secured sufficient vaccine doses for the entire adult population of our country, and the rollout is gathering pace and is proceeding. We are now at above 70,000 vaccinations a day, and will soon hit 100,000 vaccinations a day. And that is going to keep adding more pace and momentum. We expect the J&J doses will be released soon, unlocking additional supply at a significant level. Our focus now is on making the right decisions and staying the course on reform to restore our economy, attract new levels of investment, create jobs, boost wages, increase opportunities for all South Africans at all levels. The principle is a simple one. When our economy thrives, we all thrive as South Africans. When our economy is better transformed and more transformative, inequality is narrowed. Difficult though the past year has been, our economy has been resilient as well as being durable. And this is as South Africans have also been durable people. Like the green shoots of nature, these developments are a promise, a sign of hope. And that sign of hope needs to keep us going. It is our responsibility, each and every one of us in this house and across the country, to nurture these green shoots, to enable these green shoots to keep springing up, to give them water and the sunshine and the nourishment. Many of the things that are now underway in our country are of a positive nature. The other day, the Deputy President handed over land to our people here in the Western Cape. And I had the opportunity in Limpopo to also hand over land to our people, together with Minister Didiza and Minister Delil and Minister Nchabeni, and Mutsaledi was there as well. It was a joyous occasion, and it represented progress to those people on the ground. Now, that is how we need to see these green shoots. It is those people in Tafelkop, in Limpopo, Hasikukun, who can see gore go na le tswelo pele. Re ntse re ya ko pele a re a ema sebakeng se le seng. Bao ba emeng sebakeng se le seng ba eme fela ba ntse ba goa ba sa fetse. Ke bona bao rona re tswella pele batho ba Sekhukhune ba bone meshumo e botse. And this is precisely what this administration is doing. Every day, the ministers are up and going to serve the interests of South Africans. As this debate has shown, we will differ on how to achieve progress and how to sustain it. We must accept that we will differ on that. Some may offer sincere and constructive criticism, which we accept readily. Some may only offer insults and no constructive anything that they put on the table. But as this presidency, we are determined and willing to join forces with all those in this House and those across society who want to see South Africa recover and grow. Habo bane ba khotodo shumana rine, libone bane rado shumana. Haba bangwe bane ba khoso go ita phosho tshifhinga tshoṱhe, ri ḓo vha swaela nga thungo ra bvelela phanḓa na mushumo une ra fanela uri u ite. We share the sentiments of those who spoke about the need to continue to expand the frontiers of hope. Bakhona labo abebathi mabekhuluma bathi siyalibona ithemba, siyabona ukuthi siyaphi. Labo ke sizimisela ukuthi sisebenze nabo, siqhube nabo. Laba abanye sithi imani ngaseqeleni ngoba nina nenza umsindo nje. Thina sifuna ukusebenza, siye phambili. Now, I was very heartened, really heartened by the words of Honorable Buthelezi when he said, in these dire circumstances, we will be doomed if we abandon hope. Like the outstanding sage amongst us, when he looks to the horizon, he sees hope rising. The man in his 90s, he's seen it all and he has had it all. But this moment, he say, we dare not abandon hope because he sees hope rising on the horizon. And I thank him for that. The challenges that we face are immense, but by working together, by staying true to the path of renewal, we will surely reach our destination. And all I will say to my fellow members on the other side, come along, board this train that is moving forward. We will reach our destination. Otherwise, you will be left behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Secretary will read the second order.
We ask you to stay on the tracks. We'll be with you. I think your dog is
Consideration of the report of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on the appointment of commissioners to the South African Human Rights Commission.
I now call upon the Honorable Gratitude Magwanish.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. A report of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on the appointment of commissioners to the South African Human Rights Commission, dated 29 May 2021. Last year, the chairperson of the South African Human Rights Commission wrote to the Speaker alerting the House to a vacancy that will arise at the Commission when Advocate Mohammed Amermeya's term of office expired at the beginning of February 2021. Most recently, the chairperson of the Commission wrote to inform the House of the vacancy that had arisen at the Commission as a result of the Deputy Chairperson of the Commission, Ambassador Priscilla Jana, having passed away, requesting the House to begin a process to fill the vacancy. Section 193, subsection 4 of the Constitution provides that the President, on the recommendation of the National Assembly, must appoint the members of the South African Human Rights Commission. The South African Human Rights Commission Act of 2013 provides that the recommendation must also indicate whether the commissioner is to be appointed in a full-time or part-time capacity. The Act also provides that the commissioners will be appointed for a period of not more than 7 years and will, at the expiry of such period, be eligible for reappointment. The committee advertised the position and received 59 nominations or applications in all. Shortlisting took place on the 26th of February 2021, and on the 9th and 10th of March 2021, the committee interviewed the candidates. The committee also considered the appointment of the Deputy Chairperson of the Commission in terms of Section 7 of the Act. After deliberating, the committee resolved to nominate Ms. Phili Lentuli and Ms. Fatima Chauhan for appointment as full-time commissioners for a period of 7 years. We also recommend that Ms. Fatima Chauhan be appointed as the Deputy Chairperson of the Commission. The Commission would like to thank all those who made themselves available to be considered for the appointment. I thank you, Chair. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Skulsa. Are there any objections to the nominations? No objections. I will now recognize political parties wishing to make a declaration. The usual times for declaration of votes will apply. In other words, members, all of you who are going to speak here know the time you have been given. You have no authority to extend it, even by a second. With the greatest of pleasure, let's have some order in that respect. We will start with the DA. DA?
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Members. The Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services has gone through the process of appointing 2 new commissioners to the Human Rights Commission. This is as a result of 2 vacancies arising, one as a result of a term of office ending, another as the result of Commissioner Jana passing away. Both are full-time positions. 10 people were shortlisted and interviewed, and they were vetted by the vetting services, and we came to the point in the deliberations where 2 people were put forward by the committee. This was put forward by the majority of the committee. The Democratic Alliance, unfortunately, is not in a position to support either candidate. We have reservations about Sintuli for her failure to declare some information, and we don't believe that Ms. Chauhan is the best person for the job. It is our view that there were people who had better interviews, who were better qualified, and who would have brought more in the way of skills and competence to the Human Rights Commission. The Human Rights Commission sorely needs skills and competence. So we believe that these 2 persons are not best suited for the position. We would have supported Ms. Vendelankar for a position, and we would have supported Mr. Hubert. But the position, the persons that are now put forward, we find ourselves unable to support. We also don't believe that Ms. Charan was the best choice for the deputy chairperson. We hold the view that somebody who has been there for some time, who has already performed, who is driving issues in the Human Rights Commission, and who would have brought some institutional knowledge, would have been a more appropriate appointment. And so for that reason, we do not support the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we invite the next declaration, just to say, Mr. President, it is in order, if you take leave of the House, to go and do some business on our behalf. Thank you for being here in our presence. EFF, please go ahead.
Deputy Speaker, one of the most corrosive tendencies by the ruling party is the propensity to use institutions of the state and even independent institutions supporting democracy as an extension of their patronative work. For the longest time, Fatima Cohen was a Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, and under her watch, a number of sinister things happened in that department. The issuing of family with fraudulent citizenship, their landing at a national key point for their wedding are just a few of the things that happened under her watch. The South African Human Rights Commission is a very important Chapter 9 institution. The Constitution gives this institution powers to investigate and report on the observance of human rights. It is as well to take steps to secure redress for human rights violations. It has not been able to fulfill this mandate thus far because it is used as a political pawn by the ruling party and to pursue foolish and narrow political agendas. Only last year, it released an ill-advised media statement that it had to take the EFF to the Equality Court for quoting the late President of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, on the question of whether white people can be trusted or not. This is evidence that the Human Rights Commission, as is currently staffed, does not fully understand its role. This is as a result of appointing politically tainted individuals, such as Fatima Cohen, to institutions supporting democracy. She is a failed politician, and there is nothing the Human Rights Commission can benefit from her. To even make her the deputy chairperson of the commission is proof of just how outrageous the process is. Pili Landuli is a well-qualified person who seems to be grounded on the struggles of women in particular. She may have worked for various politicians, but that does not take away the fact that she is fully qualified to be appointed as commissioner. So we approve of Nduli, but we reject Cohen.
IFP. Date, can you clear the place there? Date. That's vigilance, Daddy. That's good.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. As we consider the recommendations from the Portfolio Committee on the appointment of commissioners, we reflect on the gender imbalances in South Africa labour market. The IFP supports equal participation and the equal pay for our working population in the country. South Africa has made great strides in improving women's representation in Parliament, from 27% to 48% to 46% between 1994 to 2019. Similar gains were recorded in the National Assembly, where the proportion of women increased from 2.7% to 45% in the same period. We still expect the representation of women to increase within the NCOP and other structures. The representation of women in South African Parliament is considered one of the best across the globe. We applaud the efforts that have been made in improving these numbers over the years. However, despite the progress that have been made in advancing the representativeness of women in Parliament, we have not achieved this in other sectors of work. Women remain underrepresented in the top 6 position in the country. Our decisions today need to reflect our position in addressing this gap. the IFP wishes to express its support in the appointment of the qualified women in key positions. We pursue this agenda in the interest of pursuing the equality doctrine enshrined in our Constitution and as reflected in our labor legislation. We also applaud the recommendations for gender balance in this commission. We further welcome the suggestion from the chairperson that highlighted the consideration to employ our youth. The IFP accepts the nomination made in the appointment of the commissioners of the South African Human Rights Commission. We support the recommendation made by the members of the Portfolio Committee. Thank you.
FF Plus.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The Freedom Front Plus does not support the appointment of Mrs. Fatima Cohen and Mrs. Putile Ntuli as full-time commissioners of the South African Human Rights Commission, and neither do we support the appointment of Mrs. Fatima Cohen as Deputy Chairperson of the Commission. I thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Steve Swart, ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP participated in the shortlisting process and the subsequent interviews, and we were impressed with the standard of various candidates, many of whom are well known to me, and I openly declared this at the time of the interviews. Then when it came to the final determination of the candidates to be nominated, it transpired that two candidates had not fully disclosed, in the one case a criminal offence, and in the second case a civil debt. Now, while the Parliamentary Legal Services indicated that in both cases the judgments did not legally prevent the candidates from being nominated as Human Rights Commissioners, they do raise issues of honesty and integrity. Why weren't these issues disclosed by the candidates in their documents submitted to the committee? This would have avoided much embarrassment for them, as it only came to light when the security screenings were done. Now, it was interesting that in a previous Parliament, a nomination for a certain candidate was refused, and Parliament withdrew its resolution in this regard due to that person having a civil judgment against them. Now, in that case, it was a far more serious judgment relating to fraudulent misrepresentation, and there was a finding that that person was not a fit and proper person. In the present case, the issue relating to Ms. Ntuli was that it was more trivial, and the committee did not find her not to be a fit and proper person. However, we from the ACDP's perspective, our candidates were Reverend Moss and Clow and Mr. Len Ubert, who had very good interviews and would have been eminent commissioners. And thus, whilst we've got nothing against Ms. Fatima Choham as the nominee as Deputy of the Chair of the Commission, we have a preference for the other candidates we shortlisted, nominated, and who had very good interviews. So the ACDP will regrettably not support this report. I thank you.
Thank you. UDM? ATM? Good. NFP? AIC?
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. As AIC, we do support the appointment of these commissioners. We cannot afford to have vacancies that are not filled during this critical time. The Human Rights Commission is an important institution that needs our support, the commission that looks after the rights of our people, so that now it checks on the abuse of power. This commission is very important for especially now when it includes the women, because we have got to support the appointment for women. So we say, as I say, we do support the appointment of this commissioner. Thank you very much.
Cope?
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. COPE accepts and supports the committee's recommendation. Thank you.
We're going to come
PAC?
out of Parliament. So we're out of Parliament now. That's all from the On Point team. Okay.